Okay, we have our next speaker online and waiting to come in. So I would like to introduce him, and we'll shoot now across to Europe. I believe Ramzi is in France. So Ramzi is the creative director of Do Epic Shit and Do Epic Good. He's a part-time creative director, traveler, ad man, award jury, award winner, racing driver, sailor, lecturer, student, therapist, and entrepreneur. He has worked in the creative advertising and communication industry for over 25 years, developing world-famous ideas and campaigns for many of the best brands in the world. He was recognized as the #1 creative director worldwide when working at Mehmet Ogilvy in Dubai. And in 2018, he decided to leave the corporate world to found Do Epic Shit and then Do Epic Good. He has also won amongst every major award there is, from D&AD to Cannes. I'm very, very happy to introduce Ramzi. And if you're there, Ramzi,
hello, can you hear me?
Yes, excellent.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? Are you in France?
Right. I'm actually in Portugal at the moment. Yeah, I've been
you're
doing
in
a
Portugal.
road trip.
We can't,
Yeah.
we can't keep up with you. Okay,
No,
I will
I'm
now
doing a
hand
road
over
trip with my partner and my dog.
Your what, sorry?
I'm doing a road trip with my partner and my dog. So yeah.
You travel with your dog?
I do, yeah. I love to
Excellent.
travel, and it's hard to get them on the airplane, so we do road trips instead.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, well, we'll hand you over now, and you can share your screen. Thanks.
All right, brilliant. Okay, let's see if this works. Seems like every meeting we have nowadays is like this. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you very much.
All right, great. So so I put this together especially for this presentation because I felt there's quite a lot to talk about in the area around design, creativity, advertising, but I've tried to keep it much more in the idea around design, because even though most people describe design as like the art of visualizing or creating something visual, I always think it's quite important to look at design in a bit of a bigger sense. And currently, there's a lot of challenges in the world, and we all need to be thinking about how to design for good and design to do things a little bit better, in whatever context that is, for our briefs, for our clients, for our brands and stuff. So I'm hoping just to give you some of my learnings, some of my thoughts. I'm using a lot of my own work and some other people's work as examples to demonstrate that. So I do want it to be a bit casual. So if there's any questions along the way, please interrupt me as we go, but I do have a little bit of a section at the end for Q&A. Thank you very much for the intro. It's really weird to hear yourself described that way, but I am the founder and chief creative officer of Do Epic Shit. That is the official name. It gets all my clients curious. They always lean in and say, sorry, what's the actual name? It's actually much more of my philosophy. I've been in the ad industry now for way too long, and when I left the big corporate world, as they say, I wanted to try to create an agency that has a bit of a philosophy, and the philosophy is Do Epic Shit. Too often we are in the ad industry commissioned to do work by time. We sell our time, not our ideas. We spend too much time talking about ourselves internally, not enough time with our clients. So a lot of the philosophy and the thinking I try to change, and it's still a work in progress. I wouldn't say the agency is incredibly successful. I'm enjoying myself, but it's a long way to go. But that's basically who I am and what we've created. So what is designing for good? There's a lot of people will tell you a lot of descriptions, and I did a big search online about it, and there's lots of examples of that. And very often it's about people describe it about the product you make and the material you use being sustainable. So I'm not going to talk much about the material really, because that's quite easy. I think that's quite a basic introduction to sustainability these days. What I'm going to talk about a bit more is the thinking behind it. And I always use the Sustainable Development Goals as our benchmark of what is good in the world. If you guys don't know about these, you should really all investigate it. It's an amazing tool to understand what the world needs and where the world is being challenged, the United Nations has put a lot of time and effort into creating these 17 goals. And what you can do is very simply at the beginning of every project, when you see the brief, really think about which one of these goals you're trying to answer, which one of these goals you're trying to fulfill, or several of them. Okay. And that will always help you define your objectives and guide your work in a very interesting and sustainable manner. So what I've done with lots of the work here is share what I feel is the sustainable development goals within each piece, except one piece actually, but within each piece that it answers these goals. Anyway, I've got a few. I like to keep things simple. I'm very dyslexic, so I like to keep things very simple. But I put them down to I think 5 different basic things to think about. So good design is starting with a good strategy. I cannot emphasize how important this part is. Before you ever start drawing or designing or writing, you've got to really research and think about the purpose or the strategy or the beginning of the idea. And very often when it comes to sustainable design, the actual creative side or the designing side or the execution side is the very end of the project, end of the process of sustainability. What I mean by that is you can't just decide at the very end of a product's development cycle to then make it sustainable or then to make it good. It's too late. The product has already been in development, and that is the process that needs to be cleaned up or sorted out in a sustainable manner. The sourcing, the ethics that are created behind it. And as an example of this, Apple, and I hope you guys have all seen this film, I'll play only a little bit of it, but Apple is, I think, the best example recently of how they did this. So when they released their Mother Nature film, they actually had already started the brief for that film many, many years before. They started creating their purpose, their what their objectives were, their ambitions for their products, their ambitions for replanting trees, their ambitions for zero carbon buildings and products. So they had thought about it long before they created the commercial. And then when they created the commercial, they even still were clear they weren't done yet. They weren't finished. They were just starting their journey. They were just beginning on their process to creating a sustainable business and a sustainable company. And I think this is incredibly important, never to overpromise. That's greenwashing. Never to pretend you're doing something that you're not, or emphasizing the 5% that is good about the business, even though 95% is not. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this just as a teaser. I do suggest everyone goes and finds it if you haven't seen it and watch it and really think about every single point that's made in the film and what was actually done to create that point.
Anyway, I think you get an idea. What they've done beautifully here is they talk about their objectives, their strategy, the business positioning in a very creative and very quite funny way. Very Apple, very clean, very minimal. And also what's great about it is it's all online, so there's no time restrictions anymore, which is really quite useful. But I think it's a great example of the thinking and the strategy and the positioning and purpose behind creativity that needs to happen before you go to actually creating it and designing it. So that's the first one, is really think about the strategy beforehand. Second point, sustainability by design. This is when you actually get down to the actual product development of it all. And again, I've done a piece of work back in my old life at Ogilvy, where we had Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is not a very sustainable business, admittedly. However, they used to be. Quite funnily, when they had their glass bottles and their whole business model was quite different. And we did a piece of work to honor what I think is one of the best pieces of design ever created, which is the Coca-Cola contour bottle. It's a beautiful, iconic piece that is synonymous with the brand. You don't even have to see the logo anymore to understand what the brand is. It's representative. You know what it feels like with the lights off. And you could, when you touch the glass bottle, it is for me one of the most iconic pieces and timeless pieces of design ever created. And on the 100-year anniversary, we created a piece that was given to 100 of their best distributors and bottlers to honor this contour bottle. And this is the piece of work we created for it.
Sorry, Ramsey, just before you continue, we do have a bit of a lag with the sound. So, I mean, we could clearly understand what that project was about, but the sound wasn't so good. Just letting you know.
No problem. I'll give more of an audio description and I'll play less film. No worries at all. So basically, there was no speaking in that. It was just music, luckily, and a bit of supers. But basically, what we did with that piece was every single element that we used to design it came from its history, from the cork that was the filler for the bottles, from the glass, obviously, from the wooden crates, which is like a balsa wood, and the aluminium top, which is actually from the aluminium caps. What's also good about the design is you should really think about circular economy when it comes to designing in this kind of piece. If you guys don't understand circular economy, again, do some research, find it was coin discovered it while she was sailing around the world, and it's this idea, a simple concept that the earth only has a certain amount of finite resources, and the more we use it and don't replace it and don't have it in a circular way that it goes back into the planet somehow, we're going to run out. So what is important when you think about design is think about the circularity of it. The other one is to make it really sustainable, is to make it really well made so it lasts forever and it doesn't have a short lifespan. That's the other nice secret to good quality design, in my opinion, or sustainable design, is to create things that last a very long time, that have multiple uses, that can survive. Single use is done. We should not be doing anything anymore that's single use. So when it comes to designing, physically designing a product or packaging or anything in terms of something in the space, really think about the circularity, think about the sourcing of all the material, think about its purpose, think about how long it's going to last and what it can be used for. And the fact that once it's done, can it fully disappear into the planet, back into the circular, and be used again somehow? So that's the next one in terms of designing with sustainability in mind. The next one is this idea of, I believe sustainability is designing with purpose. This is when we get a bit more to the spirituality of design, I think, a little bit. And design is such a powerful tool where it can really change people's view and change people's opinion on the world and make a difference in the world. I'm a bit of an optimist. I always believe advertising, even though it can be quite bad in the world, I think it does have a good purpose, and it can have a good purpose to do some good in the world. So there's a piece of work we did a while ago where I felt we did a little bit of good. We felt to start a conversation around something quite powerful. And this is a piece we did for UN Women. This was done, can't remember, I think in 2015 or 16, I think it was. And again, the UN Sustainable Development Goals we were targeting on this was gender equality and rectifying inequalities. And this really highlighted, I think, what I find is one of the core best things you can do about advertising or communication or design, is really hone your craft and find in every step of the way. And what I've done here is just highlighted 3 or 4 of the key insights that helped us develop this piece of work. So the first one was curiosity. What we did is as a team, were really curious about what the dialogue around the world was around women's rights and that kind of thing. So what we actually went is we went and Googled it. And our copywriter, one of our copywriters, went and found this insight on Google. It doesn't work anymore, by the way. If you type it in, you'll actually find the campaign now. But if you put women should, or women shouldn't, or women could, all these negative statements came out. And it was quite remarkable. We thought, okay, fine. Maybe it's an algorithm issue in the Middle East. So we called friends in New York, we called friends in Australia, all over the world, and the same thing popped up. This autocomplete truth came up with these different negative statements. And we were like, this can't be right. And we kept checking, we kept searching to make sure we were right. And it's like, they shouldn't vote, they shouldn't work, they shouldn't this. And this is the autocomplete. This is in theory what the world is searching. And we found it fascinating. So we kept searching and digging. And our curiosity dug deeper into this concept. We realized we had a really big insight here, that Google, or the internet at the time, was really showing us what a lot of the people in the world are thinking. And it's like, this needs to be talked about. This is a conversation that has to happen. So we let the pieces of work out, and then they became very viral. They were shared millions and billions of times, I think, actually. They were everywhere. It became very viral, very contagious. What was also really important is we were never satisfied. We never stopped. This execution, the creative art direction you see in front of you, this, I think, was the 50th or 60th version of it we did. We tried to design the same idea of this box 50 or 60 times to get it right, to make sure it was right. We had so many versions on the wall. We covered our entire office with options of it. And we kept trying to see how can we make it as minimal, as clean, as simple. We changed the copywriting so many times, the positioning of the logo, the kind of women we were going to show and how we were going to Photoshop them, and the kind of grade, the coloring on it. We really crafted every single detail. We took away everything that was not necessary, and we kept it absolutely minimal, because we were never satisfied. We were never content. And even now I look at it, I think, oh, should have done this, should have done that. But there was a deadline. We had to eventually release it. And the last one was, good design is challenging. It challenges your thoughts. It challenges what you think and your view on the world. It challenges your opinions. It's really important that strong design has a point of view on the world. Not everything has to, but it always helps if there's something that challenges the viewer or the design or the person who's using the product in some sort of way. What is it that you're going to stir inside of them? It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It can just be a small little step. But it's really important that you try to look at your work as, what can it change? What can it challenge? What can it enlighten or educate? And the last one, which is really important, much more challenging these days. Back then, the internet was simple, but good design is contagious. Good design, people want to share. And this, I think, is the biggest insight we had from this campaign, is if you're brave enough, if you're challenging enough, if you're insightful enough, if you're curious enough, people will want to share it. In which case, people will become your media. They will start to want to spread it and spread it to the world, and show, and so that becomes your amplification. That becomes your TV station, your radio station, your TikTok. It becomes this ability to pass it on and move it forward. And this was done without any influences. This was done without anyone paid at all to share any of this. This is simply shared by people who found it curious, found it interesting, found it like it was a topic that had to be shared, and they just simply passed it forward. And that became the thing. I'll play a little bit of the video, but you can search for the case study if you want and see it. But I hope the sound works on this one.
Women cannot rule.
Women should be slaves.
Women need to be controlled.
Frauen sollten zu Hause bleiben.
Las mujeres necesitan ser disciplinadas.
A new ad campaign launched this week by UN Women reveals that despite decades of global advancement,
Prejudice and discrimination towards women and gender equality still continues today.
It shows stark images of real, auto-completed Google searches
Over the mouths of women portraits, as if to silence their voices.
Online searches can reveal a lot about us as a society.
You go and search on Google and you'll see it for yourself.
These are real results. This is not something extrapolated.
People are already speaking out under the hashtag women should.
The online world has literally turned into this enormous UN forum for the people.
The autocomplete truth has become a viral sensation, capturing headlines across the world. Individuals and organizations are now creating their own.
If you haven't already in the conversation on gender equality, this online video might just persuade you.
10-year-olds, 11-year-olds debating gender equality in classrooms. And I think that says a lot about how our schools are catching on.
Shocking results, and these were real. And this is really what they believed was the genesis of how it went viral, so to speak. It was about the imagery that could be transformed and distributed everywhere.
I think it drives to behavior very quickly, which is really powerful. This is not a campaign just for UN women, the organization. It is for us understanding each other more. So it has a larger, really powerful purpose.
Prosperity, stability.
Terrorist is extremist to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon.
Den Euroraum zusammenzuhalten.
There aren't nearly enough women around the cabinet table.
Universal rights apply to women as well as men.
Natürlich vor allen Dingen auch das Thema der Frauen.
L'égalité entre les femmes et les hommes.
I'm getting some great questions here. I'll try to answer them all at the end, if that's okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I think what's important, and I've got a love-hate relationship with award shows. I can say that because I've won quite a few of them, so it's easier to have a view. But what I do love about them is it's a nice way to see and eliminate so much of the work that's very average out there. And I would always suggest to know what the good work is winning. To know the award shows, the top ones are the ones that I follow mostly. Cannes Lions, D&AD, London International, Clio, Lynx. Dubai Lynx is getting very good. It's got a lot of good standards. And my screen is covering the last one. I can't see the last one. One show. It's always nice because they collect all the best ideas in the world together. But always look at them with a bit of a pinch of salt, please. And don't do the work for the purpose of winning awards. It's really important you do the work for the purpose of the work, and the reward after the fact is the winning of an award or aiming to win an award. Too often the world is full of people who unfortunately are doing it for the purpose of winning an award, not for the purpose of the work or for the brand. And if we keep chasing that thing, our industry is just going to simply implode and eat itself. It's really important we look at the bigger world and understand there's more to it, and the more you can do, that's good. And then the great satisfaction afterwards is winning something and getting recognized by your peers in that way is always wonderful. So these are the award shows I monitor and follow, and just to keep myself up to date. Good design takes great talent and, most importantly, time. Talent, I cannot underestimate the importance of talent. I've actually redesigned my entire business around talent. And this is our new strapline, a new philosophy. It takes epic talent to do epic shit. And I can't, that creatives and strategists are the most important people in the advertising industry or in the creative industry globally. And scarily at the moment, in most ad agencies, only 30–40% of the staff are actually contributing to the creative product of that company. And with media and with all the other stuff that's happening in the world, it's becoming a bit of a dying breed, this idea of creative communication and creative strategists. So it's really, I'm loving that there's so many people on the call, that so many people are in this university studying it, because it is a beautiful art. But it does take epic talent to really do some good stuff. And you've got to be brave, you've got to be out there. But if you're curious, come check out our new website. It's about epic talent. It's a bit more tailored towards experienced creatives who've been in the industry for 15+ years. But please get in touch, and I'd love to share more about that. But there was an epic team that we had, a really creative team that created this piece of work that I always found was really beautiful design. This is a piece of work we did for IKEA in Saudi. And again, it was just beautiful, really smart thinking, simply executed and designed with a very simple idea. What is the cost of the products in IKEA? It was really quite a simple brief. They're super cheap. And things are only cheap if they're relative to something. You know, you could say that car is cheap. It's relative to an expensive car, or that thing is, and we often that phone is cheap compared to another phone, or that coffee is cheap compared to that coffee. But when you compare them to things that are in a different category, you really shift the thinking to another space. That's when you get enlightened. The idea that you could buy that bed for the same price as those stamps, you know, or you can buy that coffee table for the price of that coffee. Those 3 cups of coffee is the same price as that coffee table. I really think is design thinking. And then beautifully executed and art directed. Again, this is one that I think we art directed this over 4 months to get it right. And to really push and see how we can do it. And then once we found a way to do it, we executed it so many times to get it perfect. And then the layout and everything else, everything was considered. But it's just, once you got to crack a beautiful insight and idea, you really got to craft the execution. And this was just one of my favorite pieces we did for IKEA at the time. It won a lot of awards. It was really recognized, but for me, it was also just beautiful, simple. These are posters you want to put on your wall almost, you know, although they're advertising and they have a logo on it. But it's just a nice idea, simply done, you know. This cabinet is the price of 2 pizzas nowadays. And this lamp is literally the price of soda cans. So yeah, there's a film for this. I won't bother showing the film, but it is yeah, it is pretty cool stuff. The next is a quote from my partner, Shani. She runs one of our parts of our business called Do Epic Good. Do Epic Good is an education platform to teach brands and agencies and creatives about sustainable communication. And this one, and her quote she keeps using all the time is, creating epic shit shouldn't cost the earth. And that is really important to keep in back of your mind a lot when you're creating your work, is what is the cost for this piece of work? What is the cost of you doing it? In the translation to the type of tone of voice I've got in this presentation, designing for good shouldn't cost the earth, basically. I talked a bit about it when it comes to the product design, but it should be there in everything. What is the actual cost of what we're making, the idea we're making, not just the product development, but what are we trying to sell, and what is it going to actually cost the earth? I'm not sure how we're doing on time. I haven't lost track of time, but there is a piece of work Shani and I directed together. This is a mini documentary where we wanted to talk about fashion and sustainable fashion, and the challenges of fast fashion. Fast fashion is actually the 3rd biggest polluter in the planet at the moment. You know, considering all the pollutants we have on the world, considering fashion is actually huge. And so what we did is we created an idea called Catwalk to Creation, where we followed 2 sustainable garments from where they were created backwards to where they were upcycled from previously used fabrics. And we created a small film. I've got a small trailer for that. I'll quickly play for you just to see it. But do go and look at the documentaries. They were shot a long time ago on a shoestring budget. We funded it all ourselves. It was looking back, it's a bit amateurish, but it was still a beautiful project.
Ramzi, I'm sorry that the sound is not working well on that either, unfortunately. So maybe you can talk us through.
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, the sound is not working. I was just suggesting
Okay,
maybe you
all
talk
right.
us through the
No worries, it's just a music background.
presentation.
There's no audio.
Okay, but we
Yeah,
also
sure
do
thing.
have
Okay,
we have plenty of time as well, so keep going.
Okay, fine. No, I'm almost done with the actual prepared slides. I was hoping to have a lot more of a Q&A and chat at the end because I think that's much more useful. There is a link. I'll send the link to everyone for this film so they can view it. And then there's the longer 15-minute documentaries interviewing experts in the industry around this piece, talking about sustainable fashion, fast fashion, the challenges of fast fashion, and what this last statement really means. You know, buy, wear, love, men, share. It's the philosophy, like I said throughout the whole presentation, of your view to sustainable anything should be this idea of when you buy it to last a long time. When you wear it for a long, long time. You know, love it, mend it, and share it, or pass it forward. You know, it's becoming it's quite easy to philosophy to follow. Once you get your head around it, it actually can transform a lot about what you do. This is the website. It's a work in progress. We're still going to update it, but this is the training I was telling you that Shani runs at Do Epic Good, which is the training workshops we do for sustainable fashion. So sustainable education for marketeers and brands. And the last quote I have is from someone who I hope you guys all should know, a guy called David Droga. David Droga was one of the world's best, is one of the world's best creatives. He started an agency called Droga 5. I had the honor of meeting him once in New York, and I was waiting for 15 minutes to get to see him, or maybe 20 minutes because he was busy. And I took him a drink because he was sitting there elongated by people. You know, he was covered by people trying to talk to him. And I waited till the very end. We had a bit more time. I gave him a drink, said, I think you deserve this. And then just sat chatting with him for 5 minutes. And I asked him, because my creatives knew I was going to meet him, and they asked him for a quote. They asked me to ask him for a quote. And unprepared, yeah, he didn't know I was going to ask this question at all. He just came out with this one line, which has stuck with me ever since. And he's incredibly successful. He's on the Hall of Fame in New York and all sorts of stuff. And his line was simply, be brilliant. It's more fun. And it's really stuck with me. That thought is probably the best advice you can ever tell anyone for anything, especially as a creative, is be good. Just be a good creative, be a great designer, be someone who, and really push yourself into it. And I managed to see the lady before who creates these beautiful posters. And again, this idea of she's brilliant at her craft. She loves her craft. She pushes herself all the time. And I think that's just the essence of anything about being a creative. And Burak, I see he has a question here about what I look for in young creatives and in their portfolio. Is I don't actually look at the portfolio. I look at the portfolio before you even arrive in the room. I don't actually want you to present me the work. The work presents itself. You wouldn't be in the room if your work isn't good enough. I wouldn't even accept an interview with somebody who I don't feel their work is good enough. But what I look for is brilliance in their thinking, in their approach, and their passion for their work. They've got to love what you do. It is the hardest industry in the world, guys. You're going to be knocked down. I talk about killing babies all the time, and of all this work you see, it looks great as a nice portfolio, but there's thousands of ideas that never made it, hundreds of thousands of ideas that didn't get through. And you have to be resilient. You have to love what you do. You have to really be passionate and be brilliant. You know, you have to be confident and just love it, because you're going to be knocked down so many times. Your ideas are not going to be good enough. You're going to be pushed. Anyway.
Ramzi,
So,
I wonder if I can just expand on that. Because how do people show you, or how can people show you, for example, their passion and creativity if it's not in a portfolio as such?
No, sorry if I misrepresented that. You definitely have to show your passion in your portfolio. You definitely have to show it in the work. What I mean by it is, I generally don't need someone to sit there and say, I thought about this, and this was the idea, this was the strategy behind this piece of work. The work should show it. the work itself has to present its brief, its positioning, its audience. It has to be clear in the work. What I look for after we get past that is the passion in the person, the hunger in the person, the resilience in that person to especially as a junior, they've got to be willing to learn and willing to be hungry and willing to put in the hours and be curious about the world and be multifaceted. That's what I look for. But it's a balance of the human behind the work, because I can craft most people into becoming quite good creatives, but they have to have a certain basic skill, and view and eye for design and passion. So I'm going to stop sharing, I think, because that's pretty much the end of my presentation.
Sure,
We can
sure.
take on.
We'll have your face up on screen.
Yeah.
So they still need to have a portfolio. How do they get past I mean, it's a difficult question, but if you're receiving 200 portfolios, for example, how do you start screening that?
Again, I don't look at portfolios as often anymore because my business model has changed a bit. There's because the agency I run now is actually virtual. We don't have a physical office. It's one of our ways of being sustainable. And we're modular. We don't actually have very many permanent people. What I do is I try to find the best creatives in my network around the world to answer all my briefs. Again, I felt this was one of my learnings from the agency is we used to go to get clients, and the 30, 40 creatives I had in my department would not always be the perfect creatives for the brief. They wouldn't always be a sustainable expert or a fashion expert or an automotive specialist, but we would pretend they were, and that's a bit of the myth of advertising. So what I've done now in my new business model is we really try to find the best people around the planet for that, and that's actually what Epic Talent is about. But there is a challenge with that of working virtual, is you need to have been there, done that. You need to have cut your teeth in an agency, and I think that is the best place for big good agencies, is to train people up. You've got to be someone who can monitor you hour by hour and help you hour by hour. I don't have the time to do that anymore, so that's why I'm right now in the business I run today. I don't have many juniors because I need to leave them alone for a couple of days to do their work, and only senior experienced people can really have the skill to judge themselves and stop themselves and to curate their own work. It takes a bit of time to learn that. But back in my day, when I did receive quite a few hundred portfolios, is I'd always set out a few hours twice a week, and I would be quick. I would never look at more than 4 pieces of work. Anyone who had more than 50 pieces of work, I'd never even bother looking at it. If you can't curate your own piece of work, you're not going to have the skill. Don't over talk. Show me. We've all got the gift of the gob. We can all talk. It's if you've got the talent to execute it. So I would actually be able. I literally go click, 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 click. Yes, no. That's it. Click, click. I am that harsh. But I'm also an advertising creative. Remember, I'm not an art design creative as such. I'm not a graphic design. I don't do that kind of work. I'm a bit more faster in terms of the communication. Advertising has to be pretty quick, so you can get quite a good feeling very quickly. Plus, I've been doing this 30 plus years. Actually, I've been doing this my entire life. One of the questions at the beginning, which has made me a bit emotional about my family, is the first time I went into an advertising agency, I was actually 4 years old, and I went into the creative department. No computers, no anything. It was literally airbrush. And we had all the artists on the big art boards, and they were drawing. We literally drew executed all our art, and the fonts were done with font rub and nothing like that. And that's my history in advertising. So I kind of have got the skill. I've also done advertising in 5 different countries, so I understand a bit of it. So I do have a bit of a talent of spotting good work quickly. But yeah, I could judge a good portfolio pretty quick now. And then the fun part is replying, saying, "Yep, love to see you. Please book a time." And then that's when it gets nice. It's the conversations, meeting people afterwards.
It sounds like the creative work needs to be on the opening page rather than a introductory page. Just get it out there straight away.
Absolutely. A few very simple lines, 2 paragraphs max, or 2 about you, about your background, something a bit interesting, something different. What makes you different? What do you love? What's your passion? And then work. Just show me the work.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, we'll get to these questions. I'll just read them out in case people can't get to the Q&A tab.
Yeah.
So the first, shall I address this first one about the family again?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you come from a renowned creative family. How much influence has competition between your brothers and support from family had in developing your career?
I think everything really. I knew I was dyslexic very early on, so I was never going to have a desk job as such. And my spelling age is still officially 13 years old, so I couldn't ever write. I'm an art director. But I think my father's influence on my career was immense. Gave me opportunities to at least understand the industry. I had to get into it myself. I started in London. I studied in South Africa, but I had to get in there myself. But once I got in there and I realized I was good enough, it started pushing up. But I started as a junior art director. I started at the very bottom of the agency, and worked my way up. My competition with my brothers is actually brilliant. I love it. Luckily, we're all in slightly different categories and industries. One of them's has always been in the business side. One's always been in the PR side. So luckily, we're not clashing heads too much that way. But competition is immense. I'm a very competitive person, incredibly competitive. I even compete with my dog when I go swimming. So, but yeah, competition is really important. You have to have something that drives you, that makes you hungry. Find something. Find a colleague. Find a friend. Find a partner. Find a sibling. Find someone who's going to challenge you and call you out on your bullshit, and push you. It's so important. And don't surround people with yes people. Please don't surround yourself with people who say you're brilliant. That's not useful at all.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Next one is, what advice would you give to the junior graphic designers at the beginning of their career?
Stay hungry. Immerse yourself in the industry. Don't stay in just one small category. You should know the work. If I mention Apple, you should know it. If I mentioned the latest piece from Nike, you should know it. You've got to immerse yourself so deep into the industry and category, whatever the subcategory within communication or advertising or design you want to do. Immerse. You should know all the top agencies, all the top creatives, all the best work. When it comes out, follow the right blogs, check the right shows. You need to be a master of it, because then only when you see everything can you actually start to curate your own and know if it's good enough and original.
I think one of the common themes that's coming from various speakers that we've had is that, and it's something that you looked at as well or showed us, is that curiosity and that passion. And you just got to keep driving forward with that curiosity and passion and make sure that that gives you the best work that you can possibly do.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's everything. It's a hard job. It's a hard life. You've got to love it. I still pinch myself every single morning that someone pays me to do this. It's quite funny.
Okay, another question from Steve. Your work is very inspiring and we still use it within our teaching, but can you make a business out of this, or is it a mission that is funded by other activities? So you, both your businesses are very specialized. I mean, obviously Do Epic Good is very specialized. So is that funded by other activities?
At the moment, yes, a little bit, especially the sustainability side, because the value isn't appreciated in the Middle East just yet. It's quite challenging getting people to understand it. But yeah, advertising and communication is a business. And if you're good at something, never do it for free. If you've got a talent, if you have a true vision and insight, you do get paid for it. You can get paid quite well for it, but you've also got to keep yourself at a certain standard and professionalism to deliver on what you promise. So yeah, I think it can be a good business. It is a good business, but you have to be incredibly vigilant. And yeah, this is the for good work, like the UN Women stuff. If you only do that type of work, yeah, it's going to be really hard to make a living. There is agencies out there that do it, but it is quite challenging. But it's important to keep a balance of the work. But the philosophy or the thinking behind some of that for good work has to come across in your everyday work. And if you go and dig deep into the actual core thinking behind anything, that's why I like showing the IKEA piece. That is a beautiful, great piece of work that's fully paid and branded and for a big brand and everything else. and it's got all the same philosophy as it, you know. Maybe not all the emotion, doesn't have always, but there's amazing emotional work out there, you know. And Dove's done work throughout history that Nike does work in that way. You know, purpose can come across in any way, and even more now than ever before, brands need a purpose.
I really appreciate when you were presenting that you clearly put in your examples the UN sustainability goals that you were reaching, and certainly they should be, I think, part of all projects that we do as well, to especially drive students towards always taking into consideration these goals. So thanks for doing that. We have another question for Gaz, from Gaz. The one big differential from coursework to industry work is the time you get from brief to completion. Yeah, for example, we have about 6 weeks per brief here. Can you talk about an example project and the average time you get to spend on it, and how that is broken down into different stages to completion?
Sure.
Also, how can students get better on their time management?
I think students can get better on their time management if they really believe they're acting like they're in a working environment. Wake up, sit at your desk like you're going to work at 8 o'clock or 8:30, and don't get up until 6 o'clock. Simple as that. I mean, my university or postgrad I went to in South Africa was an amazing school that doesn't really exist anymore, called Red and Yellow. Exact same philosophy. It was run like an advertising agency. We had clients, we had briefs, we had to go into our creative director, and he literally tore up pieces of work in front of us and threw it away and go do it again. It was vicious. It was tough. But we were sitting there at our desks at 9 in the morning, and we couldn't leave until 6. Or we could leave, but you wouldn't graduate if you did. So that's my first thing is, if you want to be in this industry, act like you're in this industry, even at school. You know, age is nothing. It doesn't matter. Some of the best people I've ever worked with are 18 years old, 19 years old, you know. So that's the best piece of advice I can give, I think, for a student, is act like you're working, you know, act like you're at a job. Go to a co-working space, sit there and do not get up until you've finished it, you know. And don't give us, if you got 6 weeks, that's a chance to do, what is it? How many days? Like 30, 50 options, 100 options. I used to be able to do 5 campaigns in a day, you know. My first ever job in London.
Our students are listening.
No, my first ever job in London, I was given a brief in the morning. My creative director put me in a cubicle and he said, "Don't come out until we have 30 ideas on the wall." And it would take me the whole day, and I would scamp up 30 different executions, 30 different ways to do the brief. That's all I had to do in one day. And then next day, same again. Next day, same again. Yeah, yeah.
So in comparison, how much time do you get to spend on projects now?
It's all relative. I've done projects in less than a week from start to finish. I've done some projects in a few hours sometimes if you really have to, but that's including the strategic side. We write the brief, we find the insights, we work with them on the positioning, we do the creative thinking, and then we usually execute in about a week. If it's a film, it's a bit longer. Depends on the project, but time's relative. Time's doesn't matter.
As long as you get it done, right?
Get it done and make it
and in the best possible way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. Love your thought process behind all your work. With Do Epic Good, how are you convincing marketers and brands the need for education around sustainability? Do you pitch yourself, or is there existing demand in the market towards creating sustainable practices, especially in a region like Middle East? And do you see this increasing? Maybe answer that first.
So it is challenging at the moment. Do Epic Good originally was a consultancy, and then we realized the challenge with the consultancy is people have to brief us on what they want to do. And we realize that very often brands don't even have the vernacular, or don't even have the basic understanding of sustainable communication. So that's why we've gone to the education space to teach marketeers about the basics of good sustainable communication. It is challenging. It's very, very slow. It's much harder than I expected it to be. That the take up isn't what I thought it would be, but it's still early days, and you've got to be resilient, and you've got to be. I think what we've designed is something for tomorrow, not quite today. I hope tomorrow is literally tomorrow, but it might be a couple of weeks or months or years away. But we've designed 3 courses. They've got a lot of case studies of real work in there, examples of strategies and positionings and purposes. And we're developing a lot more. We're going to keep going. We're not going to give up on the idea of educating good for brands.
Yeah, those workshops that you're offering are an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, no, they're good. And I think we are always looking for, I mean, obviously brands, we charge them, but I think if I would love to talk to you guys, actually. I just thought about it, about maybe getting some of your students on some of them as a bit of a tester for no price. And just
We would definitely love to continue that conversation. The second part of that question is, how do you see the education industry playing a part in this to create the change with the next generation?
It's the only reason I'm here is we don't have an industry unless you guys do a good job where you are. It's becoming more challenging hiring into it, getting good talent to come into the industry. Too often, people want to go and create their own little micro shops or little design shops and not add to the bigger corporate agencies and the bigger thing. And the industry can lose its way unless we have great talent coming back up in. So education is the key to it all. And this is why 100% why I'm on this call and why I will never say no to any opportunity to talk to students, because it is the key to keeping me on my toes and making sure we keep doing good stuff, but also the industry being fed with amazing talent, because talent is everything. The people are the only thing we sell in advertising. We don't actually make a single thing. Think about it. We don't actually make a product. We sell ideas, and ideas come from people. And now we've got AI knocking on our door, which I could talk about for hours and days. But it's more important than ever. We have great talent, which are trained beautifully to understand what the real world is like and get in there and do some good work.
Well, that segues beautifully into the next question. Your work is quite humanitarian, eco-friendly. As the world becomes more digital, especially with the rise of VR and AI, how can we raise awareness on inequality and environmental concerns in today's generation?
Well, if I could answer that, I would be much richer than I am today. It's not going to be honest, not all my work is humanitarian. This is the pieces I showed you today. But very often we do not do any harm in any work we ever do anymore. We've got a few criteria we follow now in the agency, and do no harm, do no wrong, don't overpromise, don't do anything that's damaging in sustainably or humanity way, in terms of the briefs we accept and the work we want to do. But it's still a business. We still sell products and communicate ideas to people. So yeah, with the development of AR and of VR and AI and all the technology, it's going to change our world. It's going to change our world, and we're not going to recognize it again. But it doesn't mean it's a worse place. It just means we need to adapt and be good. And AI is not going to take any of your jobs. The person who understands AI is going to take your job. That's all I can explain to people, and you got to know it. There's no excuse not to have good copy anymore, because everyone can become a copywriter with it. Just harness it. I use it a lot for brainstorming. Actually, I use it to chat, because I can't think in my own head. I need to think aloud. So I use it to just share ideas. It shares back. I go back and ask another question, and it just develops thinking with me. I use it as almost like a sounding board a bit. And just so you really should understand it, should accept it, and don't let it do the work for you, but let it be that. I mean, if it does the work for you, it's just not going to be good enough. Got to be really honest. It's still very basic. In 10, 20 years time, perhaps it's going to be better than us. But at the moment, it's not good enough. If you just let it do it, it won't be good enough. But use it as that, eliminating the 50 ideas that are shit at the beginning and getting to the 5 ideas that can be really curated. But it's like it's an amazing tool. Use it, embrace it. And it can do good. It will do good in the world, I hope.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. One very last question.
Hi, Ramzi, I'm Kanaka, and that was a brilliant presentation with very alternative solutions to certain campaigns. And I was wondering, what sort of research and brainstorming session do you carry out with your own team, the creative team, and your client, to convince them to embrace the bold alternative ideas and go ahead with them?
not all of them do accept it. Very often they see these ideas and then they go, yeah, can we just change this? Can we change that? Can we dumb this down? This is a beautiful idealistic piece of, I mean, I've been in this industry way too long. I've got thousands of pieces of work. This is only 7 of whatever, 5 pieces. I maybe got in real life, my entire life, I say I'm proud of 30 pieces of work I've ever done. Maybe that's about it. 20 even, of which I only showed you guys 7, I think. Brainstorming is an art form. It takes experience to curate and to manage people and to help create people. And I was never a very good creative. I'm a pretty good creative director, but sitting by myself when I was an art director or copywriter, I was never that great. I got into my own when I can actually work with people. I think the single best thing about our industry is collaborating of talent. It's so important because and this is why I adore advertising in Dubai, because it's multicultural. You get this input from all these different places. I was very proud at our heyday in Memak. We had, I think, 12 or 14 nationalities. And it was brilliant. I actually loved it. Because they would all bring things from home and new things that they found out and things about someone's culture that, oh my God, that's so insightful. That's so brilliant, you know. And oh, I've got this connection in Brazil. I've got this amazing connection in India. I've got this great thing in South Africa or Beirut or Syria, you know. And it was just lovely. And that is the best thing about advertising and that's what great brainstorming is bringing people who will challenge. And one other rule I try to say in our brainstormers is never say the word no. It's about what if. You always evolve. You always take things forward. You never just stop things, because that's just so boring. I think my talent was always spotting a nugget, taking it back, rejecting it, giving the nugget back to people, and then they develop it again. And then you take a nugget again, and you develop it, go back. You spot that insight. In terms of clients, the best way to convince clients is have them being part of the process. That's the best thing. They're humans. They're creatives. They can be. As soon as they get a bit of confidence in you and bravery with you, and trust is so important, then they'll come along on the journey. But it's not always the case. I can tell you hundreds of stories of amazing ideas that never made it. You know, the best idea I've ever had in my entire life was never made. And we spent 9 months trying to make it. And the last minute it got killed. And it would have changed, in my opinion, it would have changed this particular brand's life. And they just didn't take it. They didn't have the bravery in the end. I did ask them 9 months earlier, we can have the ideas. Do you have I said the balls, but do you have the balls to do it? And they said, yes, we have it. Of course we do. Come on. 9 months later, I went and told them you didn't have the balls to do it. And that was it. It was over. It's part of life, you know. I still got it somewhere. It's incredible. I wish I could show people. So yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Ramzi. We're so pleased that you could join us today, especially we know that you are extremely busy. But we also look forward to continuing a conversation with you about, you know, bringing this or everything that you've said into the education system. So
I'd love to, honestly. It's
yeah.
What you guys do is brilliant, by the way. By the way, your instructors are the real heroes of the industry. Just got to say, you really are.
Thanks very much. We love that. Okay, well, thank you again. Allow you to get back to your dog and your partner and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
No, really appreciate it, guys. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the weather, though. It's raining here as well.
Thanks.